call to order this hearing of the Senate Taxes Committee, noting that a quorum is present. Our first item is to adopt the minutes from January 28th, 2025. Are there corrections or additions to the minutes from that date? Seeing none, the minutes are approved as presented. We have been hearing reports that are required of the Department of Revenue, and we're going to make sure that even though they are online on the department's website, we're not going to hear every single one of them, but we are going to have printed copies as they are released in our folders. And so the one today that is in your folders is the film production credit report dealing with tax years 21 through 24. I'll just call your attention to it. It was released or put on the website January 17th. As other reports that are required become available, we'll make a decision about, or if someone sees it, if any member sees it and wants to request a presentation by the department, just let us know, and we certainly will accommodate that request. And then the first bill is Senate File 128. Oh, there he is over there. Senator Farnsworth, you are behind the post. Welcome to the Taxes Committee, Senator Farnsworth. You're presenting Senate File 128, and I believe, I'm sure, we have your author's amendment, the A2, is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair, would you like me to explain it?
Okay, Senator Klein moves the A2 amendment. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Senator Farnsworth, if you would take us through section by section. I think we understand what the purpose of it is, but if you would just take us through the section by section, the bill that you have in front of us today, and then we can go and look at the spreadsheets and hear from the mayor. Senator Farnsworth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to present. Section 1 modifies the calculation of city aid, and there's it goes through the cities greater than 10,000, less than 10,000. At least one section is at cities with a population of at least 2,500 or lower than 3,000. There's a lot of formulas in there that I don't really understand. Probably the people on the tax committee that have heard this for years understand this better than I do. But that's what section 1 accomplishes. Section 2 incorporates the sparsity adjustment that was removed 2 years ago, and it adds 200 for the sparsity adjustment for cities with a population of 10,000 or more, and average population density less than 150, and a city with a population less than 10,000 and density less than 30 per square mile. I'm told that this will affect either 10 or 12 cities in the state. I can't remember 10. And then Section 3 just sets the LGA amount, and the amendment increased that amount, so it was originally $644,398.12, and the amendment increased that by $25,500 in consultation with nonpartisan staff. If we hadn't done that, then other cities' LGA would have been decreased in order to accomplish this. And so we wanted to do that, hold harmless, in order to ensure that no city was harmed as a result of this. And I hope that summary is satisfactory, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Farnsworth. I just want, before we get to your testimony and looking at the spreadsheet, the number that you inserted is now the total amount of LGA, and it's only increasing by that $200 for those specified cities by description, and that would return it, just want to make sure I understand, that would return that sparsity aid that had been eliminated in the 2023 LGA formula. Am I understanding that?
Yes, ma'am.
Correctly?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Then I have one other question.
Okay.
Why did we do that? Why did that? Do you have a reason why, or know why those putting together that formula eliminated that particular factor in sparsity aid?
So as I recall, Madam Chair, we had, in 2023, I had a bill that I have to remember, I've got to look here, for cities that are greater than 10,000, and with the lower population density, we had a bill back then in 23, their sparsity adjustment was only 100, and I had a bill that would increase that to 200, and that only impacted Hibbing. It was in the Senate version of the omnibus bill, and then that was all stripped out. I wasn't in conference committee, but the whole provision was stripped out in conference committee in 2023.
So in your opinion, the Senate, with regard to this provision, acted correctly?
Yes, Madam Chair, as usual.
Let's just get that on the record here? Yes. Okay. So if you would, then maybe just again, a full explanation. If you would go to the handout that we have, which is entitled "The Pay 2026 Proposed Local Government Aid," and then just direct us to those lines that you would like us to have our attention paid to, and then we'll hear from the mayor, or back to yourself.
Madam Chair, could I ask?
You certainly may.
The fiscal analyst to do that? Ms. Johnson?
Senate Counsel, if you would.
Madam Chair, yeah, I can walk us through this
Sure.
model. So this, because there's a lot more information in here than just this bill. So if you look at it, this is kind of the baseline LGA run for the proposed 2026 LGA. So in the far left column, you'll see pay 2025 certified LGA. So that was the amount that was certified for 2025. And then the second column is the baseline pay for 2026. So this is without any policy changes proposed in this bill. What is the modeled LGA for 2026? So if you look through the packet, it breaks it down by cities. So you may be interested in looking at particular cities. And then the next column shows the change between that baseline pay, again, no policy changes, and then this 2025 pay. So last year, this upcoming year. And then if you go to kind of like the third grouping of columns, there's proposed pay 2026 LGA. And what that is the LGA amounts that would be awarded under SF 128 as amended. And I think something to pay attention to is if you go over to the far right, and you see that first, in the far right group, the first column, proposed pay 2026 change from the 2026 baseline. So what that shows is the change in amounts that would go to cities based off of this 2026 baseline, so no changes, and then this proposed change under SF 128. And what you'll notice is if you look through the cities, no cities have a decreased amount unless it's like $1, which is a rounding. And so that shows how with this increased appropriation, cities are held harmless.
Okay, any questions about the spreadsheet? Then Senator Farnsworth, if you want to begin, and then introduce your witness.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as we said, this affects 10 cities, and cities that have a lower population in comparison to their city size have a lot of city infrastructure that needs maintenance with not as much tax base. And with your permission, Madam Chair, Mayor Pete Hyduk of Hibbing can give the example of how that affects the city of Hibbing.
Okay, any questions? Then your witness, welcome to the committee.
Thank you.
If you'd state your name for the record.
Yes, my name is Peter Hyduk. And good morning to everybody. And thank you, Madam Chair Rest and Senators. My name is Pete Hyduk, and I am the mayor of Hibbing, Minnesota. It's an honor to be here today and talk about Hibbing and our rural needs. I want to first thank Senator Farnsworth for inviting me down today to talk. He's been a strong advocacy for the city of Hibbing in our region, as well as Senator Hauschild, who's in the House today, who supports everything throughout northeastern Minnesota. And thank you to the Senate Tax Committee for hearing SF 0128 today. Senate File 128 will provide much-needed assistance to the city of Hibbing to help us maintain our streets, facilities, and provide public services for our citizens and our businesses. As noted, this bill will increase the sparsity adjustment for Hibbing and other cities, which is much needed for the city of our size in rural Minnesota. Madam Chair, as I've noted, Hibbing is incredibly large. Our city landmass within our city borders is so large that all of Ramsey County, the city of St. Paul, and all their suburbs can fit inside the city of Hibbing footprint. Imagine trying to maintain a city this large with a rural tax base. The city of Hibbing has a population of approximately 16,000 residents, but because of our city size, which is 186.5 square miles, our population density is just 85.7 residents per square mile. The uniqueness of this density issue that Hibbing is facing is a reason Senate File 128 is so important to us. Putting this all into perspective, Ramsey County has a population of 535,000 residents and a population density of 3,519 residents per square mile. Further, comparing Ramsey County, they have an estimated market value of 67 times the value of the city of Hibbing, which tells the story of the difficulties that we face to provide our local needs through just local tax dollars. As you know, the additional local government aid funding is used for general public services like roads, facilities, staff to support public services, and public safety. At this time, presently, Hibbing is in the process of building a new regional public safety center that will house EMS, police, and fire. What's unique is this regional center will not just support Hibbing, but we support mutual aid for a total of 600 square miles around our community. Madam Chair, as the mayor of Hibbing, I, along with Hibbing City Council, the city staff, are working hard every day to be as frugal as we can with the limited tax revenues our residents pay. However, there just isn't enough to go around. In closing, Hibbing has great needs, as many other rural communities, and we need your help. We are grateful for this hearing, and I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time. Thank you so much.
Are there any questions? Senator Farnsworth, I'm going to go back to the the spreadsheet, okay. Why is it that, or I'm looking at what cities would be getting any increase, and of that 25,000, Hibbing gets about half, a little bit more than half of it, 13,000. Why is that? And I'm just looking now at the third column from the right, and Ms. Johnson pointed out some of it, but it's going only to greater Minnesota cities. I'm just describing it. And then like $94 or something, because the cities are bigger. I mean, they're smaller. They don't fit the description that is, that would trigger the sparsity aid. And then there, and then there's just a bunch of zeros. Are the ones, are the ones that would get part of a factor, whether it's Hibbing, are the other cities on the Iron Range, or are they elsewhere in the state? Can you tell us that, or if not, Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And actually, as the mayor was testifying, I was going through wishing that I had made a list of all the cities, and I apologize that I
Yeah,
didn't.
I'm looking at that too.
I did not see any Iron Range cities. When I looked at the percentage of change, I did not see any other Iron Range cities. In fact, some of the cities were so small, I'd never heard of them.
Yeah,
But as of page
they
50.
were new to me too, when I'm looking. I mean, I don't know where, I don't know where, well, I guess I know where Avine and Babbitt, but,
Madam Chair,
yeah,
I saw one of the larger amounts that goes to Rushford Village. Is that in southeast Minnesota?
where is it?
Okay. Okay.
Ms. Johnson?
Madam Chair, so to the first question about why so much of the funds go to Hibbing,
Yeah.
part of it is, so if you look at section 1 of the bill, this sparsity adjustment is being added into the part of the formula that calculates a city's per capita revenue need. So that sparsity adjustment's being added in and then multiplied by the population. So since Hibbing has a much larger population than the other
see.
cities that qualify, they're getting proportionally more
I see.
of the funds. And then I have a list of the cities here, if I can read for the committee, that would receive increased
Sure,
funding.
just kind of where they are.
Yeah, I don't have it's,
All right, if somebody here knows where they are, if you would just let us know.
sure. So there's Hibbing, Rushford Village, Trumald, Babbitt,
Where are they, well, I know where Babbitt is. Where are the other two? Anybody know?
Rushford Village is in Fillmore County.
Fillmore County, so,
It's in the district head of-
so that's south here,
South, yeah.
okay?
and
I'm just
Denham.
curious, that's,
Oh, Madam Chair,
Yeah,
excuse me.
go ahead.
Donaldson, Big Falls, Effie, and I believe Mizpah?
they're whose? Oh, they're in Senator Hauschild's district, okay?
Madam Chair, that is all.
Okay. That's very interesting. I don't quite understand it, but I'm not objecting to it, just trying to understand how it works.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Go right
So
ahead.
I do want to correct the record, because I did say there was no Iron Range cities, but because we did discover Babbitt is in there, Babbitt is in the Iron Range. And I also thought that I saw, and maybe Ms. Johnson could correct me, the city of Tamarack. Is that on the list? That's not in the Iron Range, but that is in my district.
I see.
The southern part of my district.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Senator Farnsworth, and Senate File 128 as amended will be laid over for consideration in the omnibus bill.
Thank you,
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we welcome Senator Klein, who is going to present Senate File 199. Senator Klein.
Thank you, Chair and members, and continuing along the theme of trying to assist our local cities with poor property-based tax returns.
Senator Klein, do you want to adopt your amendment first? Oh, no, I'm sorry, that was Senator Farnsworth. I'm sorry, your bill stands as it is printed for us. Go right ahead.
No problem, Senator Chair Rest, and I'll go through the bill as you prefer, section by section. Senate File 199, Section 1 establishes a property tax credit for residential homestead property if the property is located in a city of the second class that was designated as a redevelopment area by the United States Department of Commerce under the Public Works and Economic Development Act of 1965. Tax members will remember that this is legispeak for South St. Paul, 30 words that basically say South St. Paul. Only homestead properties in the city of South St. Paul would qualify. The credit is equal to 70% of the property's property tax attributable to repayment of capital improvement bonds. Section 2 adds the reference to the new property tax to the list of credit certifications made by the Department of Revenue. Section 3 adds the new property tax credit to the list of credits used to determine the amount of net property taxes owed. Section 4 requires that the property tax credit appear on truth and taxation statements. Section 5 requires city containing property eligible for this new credit to certify to the county auditor the portion of the city level levy attributable to that. And Section 6 requires county auditors to determine the city capital debt tax rate for each city containing properties eligible. Members, my city manager was going to be here to speak about the need of South St. Paul to have this property tax credit, and he was laid low by the norovirus, but this is what he would have told you. South St. Paul has the second highest municipal tax rate, highest school district tax rate in Dakota County, and the lowest property tax capacity in the county. The homestead property taxpayer is burdened with 16% higher local, municipal, and school taxes versus a comparable value home elsewhere in Dakota County. Not because they are spending more on services, but because their tax capacity, derivative market value in homestead and other property classes is depressed. Essentially, it's an aging residential city that does not have a lot of commercial interest to sustain it. Right next door is West St. Paul, which of course has the bustling metropolis of Robert Street and does very well. Taxpayers are on the hook for much less to support their schools than the city of South St. Paul. South St. Paul is also unique in that the city boundaries exactly match the boundaries of the school district. Just a couple of other points, Madam Chair. Median household income in South St. Paul continues to lag behind. They're 22% lower than elsewhere in Dakota County. And if enacted, this legislation would provide an estimated $30 credit annually to the average value homestead taxpayer in South St. Paul. It would also afford an estimated $200,000 to $250,000 in annual aid to Special School District 6, South St. Paul. I realize, Madam Chair, this is my attempt to support my school district in South St. Paul, which has a poor property base. I know there are other members of the tax committee who have cities with similar problems. Senator Nelson comes to mind, but I'm here today advocating for South St. Paul.
Thank you, Senator Klein. And you had this bill or a similar bill previously in, was it in the 2024 bill?
It was, Madam Chair.
And as it left the Senate, was it still a tax credit? Or had it been changed, I'm trying to remember, to a an appropriation.
Madam Chair, you did change the language in your final language of the omnibus to an appropriation.
To an appropriation. Are there questions for Senator Klein about this bill on behalf of the city of South St. Paul? One of my favorite small cities, too,
Mine as well, Madam Chair.
because of its history in the meatpacking industry, you know that. And a company that my father was associated with, so I like South St. Paul. I like Hibbing, too. Okay, I might as well say that. Any questions? Then Senator Klein will continue to consider what is the most appropriate way of recognizing the challenges of South St. Paul going forward. But I appreciate that you reintroduced your original starting point, and let's see if that same, if we keep that starting point, or if we return to the bill as it left the Senate. So do you have any further comments? So Senate File 199 is laid over for consideration in the Omnibus Senate Taxes Bill. The next bill is Senate File 308, Senator Drazkowski, and we have Senator Drazkowski's testifiers are on Zoom, and of course, because of the way our room is situated, they will be available to the members on the committee. And before, I neglected at the beginning of the committee to introduce an intern for the Taxes Committee that has been serving since the beginning of session, but she wasn't here on the first day. She's seated to my right over here, Madeline Michael. So I hope you will greet her if you come to my office or see her in the hall, and if there's anything that she can be helpful to you with. She's very proficient in ChatGPT and knows probably more about artificial intelligence than most of us. So I hope you will engage her. So Senate File 308, Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for hearing the bill. Senate File 308, and the need for it was brought to me by Goodhue County, and you'll hear from two people who work for Goodhue County, the city administrator, or the county administrator, and the finance director here shortly. But the operative part of the bill really is just the change, the strikeout on page 2, line 3, that strikes out the 2% above the prime rate. And the intent of the bill is to bring equity or treat equally homestead property with the other classes of property as it relates to confessions of judgment. I'm learning a lot about confessions of judgment, Madam Chair, and I think maybe our testifiers, Mr. Dowling and Mr. Arneson, will help even more. If you take a look at the handout that Goodhue County put together, they did a good job of reviewing the history of it and kind of where we're at, and that is the bill, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, any questions before we turn to the witnesses? And I will point out to the members that the blanks in section, where it is, the blanks that begin on page 2, line 27, are just prescribing the form. It's not anything we put in the statute. So, Mr. Arneson, are you with us? Oh, looks like you're both sitting together, but if we may begin with Mr. Arneson, the County Administrator for Goodhue County. Sir, if you would identify yourself for the record, we would be pleased to hear your testimony.
Yes, thank you. Scott Arneson, Goodhue County Administrator. Thank you for having us today, Chair, and thank you, Senator Drazkowski, for taking this issue up. I think I'll turn it over to Lucas Dowling, our Finance Director. He's got the bulk of the testimony here.
Indeed. Mr. Dowling, if you would identify yourself for the record, we're pleased to have your testimony.
Yes, good morning, and thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Lucas Staling. I'm the Finance Director at Goodhue County. So again, thank you for your time, Madam Chair, as well as the entire Tax Committee. Thank you, Senator Drazkowski, for bringing this important issue forward. First off, Goodhue County supports Senate File 308. Recent revisions to state statute coupled with increasing interest rates have resulted in property owners who enter a confession of judgment for repayment of back taxes on homestead property paying more interest than a confession of judgment on any other property type. By revising statute, Senate File 308 fixes an unintentional financial burden on struggling homeowners without any material revenue impact to the counties. In case you aren't familiar with what a confession of judgment is, I'll give you a general overview. A confession of judgment, or a COJ for short, is a payment plan to repay delinquent taxes over time to prevent tax forfeiture. The delinquent tax amount is a combination of the delinquent taxes, penalties, special assessment, costs, and accumulated interest paid back in equal annual installments. COJs are essentially a last resort for people who are in the process of losing their property. These are typically entered into by those who are down on their luck and struggling just to get by. Terms of COJs are for 10 years for residential property and 5 years for commercial property. And under current law, homesteads are charged 10% interest rate, while all other property types are being charged only 8%. Prior to legislative changes in 2014, all COJs were charged the same interest rate, which was the prime rate with a 10% floor. In 2014, the homestead property specific interest rates were changed, when Minnesota Statute 279.37 subdivision 2B was revised. This revision removed the 10% floor on homestead specific property. It also changed the homestead specific interest rate to the greater of 5% or 2% plus the prime rate. Non-homestead property COJ rates remained at the prime rate with a 10% floor. In 2023, all non-homestead property interest rates were changed when Minnesota Statute 279.03 subdivision 1A was revised. This revision then removed the 10% floor and kept the interest rate being charged at the prime rate. The net effect of these legislative changes are that homestead property is now charged 10% interest, while all other property types are being charged 8% interest. This has been the case in both 2024 and 2025, and you can see the interest rate history on the back side of the handout that was provided. Goodhue County currently has 24 active COJs. The vast majority of these agreements are for residential properties. We see COJs as an important tool for those struggling financially to stay in their homes. COJ interest charge is not a major revenue source for any taxing authority, and counties retain less than half of the funds collected. This means that in 2024, Goodhue County's interest revenue related to COJs was less than $5,000, while our total budgeted revenues were approximately $91 million. I provide this information to emphasize that the loss of this revenue would not have a material impact to our county operations. The impactful outcome of this change would be the significant savings to those individuals struggling to stay in their homes. With the proposed change, a new homestead COJ could reasonably be charged $300 less in interest in the initial interest payment. Additionally, they could save $1,000 of interest over the life of their contract. Again, Goodhue County supports Senate File 308 as it corrects an interest rate discrepancy that we feel is inequitable. Thank you, Senator Drazkowski, for bringing this issue forward. And thank you, Madam Chair, as well as the entire Tax Committee for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Dolly. Any questions? And I'm trying to, I appreciate the testimony relative to what's happening in Goodhue County. Is the impact that they describe on this handout, Senator Drazkowski, where the conclusion is that a new homestead confession of judgment would reasonably be charged $300 less interest in the initial interest payment and could save $1,000 over the life of the contract. Is that, or would we find similar situations in other counties as well, or is Goodhue County an outlier?
Madam Chair, it would be the same throughout the state.
Same with, I think it might be interesting to have that data for how it would affect homeowners in other counties as well as Goodhue, and understanding that on the revenue estimate, lots of unknowns there, of course, but the last line is that the interest that would be distributed to school district reduces the state-paid general education aids, so the proposal would increase Department of Education payments to school districts by an unknown amount. I think it would be helpful to understand the magnitude of that, even though it's going to, it affects single school districts differently, that it's not predictable because you'd have to know how many contracts had been signed in any given year. But I think it would be interesting to find out if we could, take a couple of years, 21, 2022, and see what the statewide impact would have been if this provision of flattening the interest rate to 5% and based on the prime rate, and rather than having it be the prime rate plus 2%, I think it is now, no greater than 14%. So it's an interesting approach for a way of modifying the impact on owners of residential property that is homesteaded.
So, Madam Chair, if I could, thank you for those comments. I think that analysis would be probably difficult to do across the state. You'd have to go, we know what it takes to get a local impact note from,
Yes.
for a particular
Yeah.
bill.
Be
I can
8
only-
months.
It would be.
Well, I mean, and it's because the local impact notes require the LBO to reach out and do a survey of local governments, and it's not a requirement of the statute. It's actually voluntary, and local governments have other things to do, so it takes a while to get those surveys sent out, sent back, and analyzed.
So, Madam Chair, if I could, the work done on the revenue statement from the Department of Revenue, if you turn it over on the back, and I noticed from reading this in the fine text there on the right, and maybe Mr. Sylvia can, I'm still trying to understand this perfectly, but in the Homestead area, if this bill was enacted, we would get rid of the 2% on top of the prime rate, which would mean we'd either have prime rate or the 5% floor. If the prime rate dropped below 5%, which I don't know in history if it does, I assume it could, we would have, as they point out, a divergence here from the other classes of property, because maybe Mr. Sylvia can clarify this. I don't think that the other classes have that hard floor in there. If we do this, Bill, we might want to get rid of the 5% floor in the Homestead area as well, was my thought when reading this. So I'd be curious if Mr. Sylvia could comment on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Drazkowski. It's a very interesting question to turn to him too. And so it's amazing to me how if we really look hard, we can find other ways of providing relief of one sort or another through a piece of the property tax system that we don't often think about. So I appreciate this bill. Mr. Sylvia.
Madam Chair, Senator Drazkowski and members, as Senator Drazkowski indicated, there are some different interest rates charged for different types of property. So with this proposal, if we were to keep the floor, which the bill proposes to do, but eliminate that prime plus 2, that works for homestead properties. But the way the law works right now, the interest rate charge on confessions of judgment for all other properties is linked to the interest rate for the delinquent taxes, so it's a different mechanism. And then there's also a different interest rate charge for property tax judgments, and those would apply for different types of property, homestead or otherwise. So to Senator Drazkowski's point, there could be an opportunity to revisit those, because even with this proposal, there could be changes in the future if those interest rates were modified in other ways.
No, thank you. I guess you're really unable to determine that the impact in dollars to the counties, and maybe they at some point, Senator Drazkowski would provide you even individually, even to get a range without going through the local impact note, process. But on the other hand, if that's something that you're interested in, I'm one of the people who can make that request. And if you want that, just let me know and I will make that request.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would point out that Goodhue County mentions on their brochure here in the middle column on the bottom that their confession of judgment total interest was less than $5,000 out of a $91 million budget. So it's not significant, and that's one of the reasons. I think probably two of the reasons Goodhue County, maybe three. One is it's not a huge impact for the county. It helps, as they point out in their flyer, it helps keep that property in the hands of the homeowner and doesn't give them that undue burden. And then thirdly, it starts to bring those different types of property to be similar, much more similar than they are now. Because right now we have Homestead artificially propped up higher. They're paying a higher amount of interest than, say, commercial property.
And I think traditionally we have tried to find ways of making our property tax policies, the most favorable class is ag lands, of course, in terms of the class rates, but the right on top of that is residential homesteads. So thank you very much for this discussion. Senator Barr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. So when the homeowner enters into one of these agreements, is that tax or that interest rate locked until it's completely paid, or does that float from year to year to year if you're going on the prime, which the prime moves? Is that locked in once they do their agreement?
I believe so.
Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Barr, I believe so, but Mr. Sylvia can verify that.
Mr. Sylvia?
Madam Chair, Senator Bob, that is correct. So it would be locked in at that percent that's charged initially.
Further, okay. Any further discussion of Senate File 308? Seeing none, Senate File 308 will be laid over for consideration in the omnibus bill. And I appreciate, again, the willingness of the two gentlemen from Goodhue County to join us and testify this morning. Thank you, gentlemen. The next bill before us is Senate File 309, also dealing with property taxes. Senator Drazkowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, members, Senate File 309 simply would extend the deadline, the ultimate deadline for filing the property tax refund to 2 years instead of 1 year past the August 15th date. Operative part of the bill is 1.7, line 1.7. This was brought to me by a constituent, Renee McGrath. She lives just north and west of Wabasha at Reed's Landing. And she would be here today, but we missed the deadline to get her in to testify because she had some medical conditions that temporarily put her out of commission for a little bit, but she's back in the game, but unable to be here today because of the deadline. So she had filed taxes and then eventually learned, obviously, that she hadn't applied for the property tax refund. She didn't know that she hadn't, and then she had back and forth with her tax preparer, so that was the condition around this bill. She wanted to file for it, but wasn't aware of it, and she testified to me on the phone yesterday that she knew of several people who weren't even aware of the property tax refund, who were also homeowners. And then I'll lastly point out something I think that she pointed out, or somebody pointed out, that renters no longer have to file the property tax refund, so they are automatically having it rolled in as part of their tax preparation. So renters don't have the burden, if you will, to have to make certain that they meet the deadline and get filed properly for this. So this bill proposes to give an additional year of time in the event somebody like Ms. McGrath learns about the property tax refund and their qualification for it and hasn't filed. So that's the bill. There is a revenue estimate there from the department. You can see it's 2.5 million essentially per fiscal year.
Thank you, Senator Drazkowski. So I was looking for, on the estimate at the bottom, there would be approximately 2,200 additional homeowners. Property tax refunds would be paid due to an extension of that. And I'm assuming that those 2,200 are ones that have that it is a legitimate property tax refund if it had been filed on time. We're not talking about people who were playing games with it or anything like that. If they had filed it on time, they would have received it. I wish it didn't cost so much in terms of how we look at these things. And I wonder if at some point, or how we would do that, whether it just an automatic year, or should we, like your constituent, be required to, submit an affidavit of the reasons why she couldn't apply for it, a sickness, illness, or I'm a little bit reluctant to the people who don't know about it. It seems to me that there maybe should be a responsibility of the department to have, to include it, if they don't already, in their just general outreach to taxpayers of, make sure, I mean, we're doing it on the child tax credit, we do it on other new programs. This is not a new program, but just a reminder when deadlines are approaching, whether that some additional reminders from the department might reduce that number to such a number that we could afford, relatively speaking, the costs of extending it to a second year. I think all of us are sensitive to when we forget a deadline and just what the consequences of that should be if it was inadvertent on the part of the taxpayer or person involved that would otherwise have received a benefit. So I'm interested in this, and we'll just see if there are, if there would be less costs by doing some outreach, but then having the period be a shorter one to start with. And for those who just say, well, I'm not interested, big deal, I'll just let it go, and so forth. So just lots of questions about how we can be helpful at getting these refunds to people that deserve them, homeowners that deserve them. And we're not going to see it being automatic. I don't believe that. I think that would, I don't know what that would be. I don't know whether that would be, if that's even possible within their systems, like it is for the renter's credit. I don't know, but I think you bring up a very interesting problem. It would be nice to have it resolved without costing $2.5 million a year. Any other questions or comments? Senator Nelson.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Your comments were right along my line of thinking as well, which is we should be able to figure out how we can let people know that they qualify and how to apply. And I don't know if that does come from the taxing authority when the tax bill is sent out, that you qualify, here's how you can access a refund or apply for a refund. But I think we would do well to try and better make sure people have the information that they need. And sometimes it's a matter of, we have lots of different ways of communicating today, and I'm finding some constituents might not get email, so they might not get a notice through an email. Or maybe, so there's a lot of different things that I think we just need to take into account, and I would hope that as we go forward, we can, as you had mentioned, try to make sure everyone is well aware of being eligible for a property tax refund and how to access it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Nelson. Ms. Pollitt, do you know, or should I ask Ms. Bayers, how many property tax refunds based on the PTR or some sort of relief to property taxes. But the property tax relief that's based on filing the PTR form are issued. Not the amounts, but how many?
Madam Chair, if you're speaking of the property tax refund, which I think is the subject of this bill, I think
Yep.
Mr. Sylvia could better answer that question, but maybe that's more appropriate for the department.
Ask the department, I'm sorry. Ms. Bears, do you have a number? Senator Drazkowski, do you mind if I ask her? If 2,200 would be the number, looking at your revenue estimate, additional homeowner property tax refunds would be paid. How many are paid now on an annual basis? Do you have that information?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, for the record, my name is Joanna Bears. I'm the Legislative Director for the Department of Revenue. I do not have that offhand, but I can get that information to you.
I wonder if your research department has that information, if they could provide it to the committee. Thank you very much. Anything further, Senator Drazkowski?
No, a good discussion, Madam Chair. Thank you for hearing the bill. You know, it might make sense, at least in the long run, for us to treat the homeowners the same way we do the renters. And I know we don't have a $19 billion surplus to do it.
Right.
But we did at one point. It'd be interesting to see what that component cost us last
I
time.
know.
Maybe we can look back to that. That might be instructive too, as we look at it. But thank you for hearing the bill.
Sure. Anyone else? Seeing none, Senate File 309 will be laid over for consideration in the omnibus tax bill.
Say, Madam Chair, Ms. Bears said the number's 550,000. The electrons delivered that to her real quickly.
Okay, so 550,000 as opposed to 2,200 over that period, if we extended it. We need to think about that, the magnitude of it. Okay, thank you, Senator Drazkowski. Senator Hauschild, Senate File 363. Oh, and Senator Drazkowski, the two bills that you had were not offered last year, is that correct? These were new? These are new, okay.
The first one was introduced last year, but not heard.
Okay. And so I'm going to start with asking you the same questions, because a lot of the bills that I have, the only change is the effective date. So Senator Hauschild, if you would explain this very short bill, but then if you would comment on whether it was under consideration in last year's bill as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. First, I just want to thank Senator Weber for joining me on this bill. For those of you that have not been to Cook County, on the very tip of the arrowhead, I strongly encourage you to go there. Obviously, I am biased, but it is a very special part of our state. It's right on the edges of the wilderness along the North Shore, and a very hardy small county of about 5,000 people, as well as a tribal nation, Grand Portage. Those two nations, or county and a nation, I would lift up as a model for the country on how they work together and cooperate in providing services in that county. For example, last year, not to get too far off this bill, but they worked together to implement a Coast Guard operation when the federal Coast Guard left Cook County. The tribal nation and the county worked together on that effort, which we provided funding for. So they do a lot of special things together. Every time I meet with them, it's the tribal nation and the county together. I really hope that we can sort of bring that type of model to the rest of the state. Today I have for your consideration Senate File 4486. This is a bill regarding property taxes, 5 parcels in the county that are owned by the Grand Portage Band that the county would like to exempt from property taxes. So as part of the relationship, they've worked diligently to reduce the property tax burden for the Grand Portage Band. And so now they just have these 5 parcels left that they have both agreed to exempt from property taxes. And in the packet, I do have a letter from 2024 where the county did unanimously approve this move as well. And Madam Chair, you'll be happy to hear that there's actually a state savings of a little less than $5,000 due to the school bond ag credit in 2027 and onward. So there is a very slight savings that would happen from this. But anyway, I just want to highlight how unique it is to see the county and the tribal nation come together to partner on many of the services that they provide, and exempting these property taxes for the tribe, I think, is a great move. Madam Chair, to your question, we did hear this bill last year, and it was included in the Senate tax omnibus at one point.
Are there questions for Senator Hauschild? Seeing none, we'll turn to your testifier, Mr. LeBeau, if you'd identify yourself for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. My name is Reed LeBeau, and I'm the counsel and lobbyist for the Grand Portage Band. I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee might have. And I would note, just on what Senator Hauschild mentioned, Grand Portage actually has the first and only joint state tribal state park in the state of Minnesota, and actually the first in the country, which if you drive all the way up to the Canadian border, you will see the highest waterfalls in the state of Minnesota at Grand Portage, and we'd love to have everyone come up. Thank you.
Any other questions? I will point out that this is very unusual to have parcels that are not contiguous being, and that was an issue last year as well, not getting this particular kind of treatment. Usually, as I understand it, the request has been, if it's been for more than one parcel, it's because they are located next to one another. Mr. Sylvia, is my understanding and recollection correct?
Madam Chair, yes.
Okay, thank you. Senator Hauschild.
Madam Chair, if I might, do we know why that is the case? Why the contiguousness of the parcels is important?
Mr. Sylvia, in relation to what has been, not necessarily policy, but past practice, that it's only been contiguous parcels. Could you enlighten us?
Madam Chair and members, most recently when the legislature has enacted these sort of parcel-specific property tax exemptions for tribal-owned land, usually it is a structure with a sort of identified tribal purpose. And so typically it's, I think we enacted one for a pharmacy in Duluth. There was I believe a child center in Minneapolis. And so they're identified sort of structures that may extend beyond one parcel. And I think the uniqueness about this proposal is that it's classified as 2B rural vacant land where there's not a structure or perhaps an identified specific tribal purpose like those others that we have enacted recently.
Good. Thank you very much. Mr. LeBeau.
Madam Chair, if I might, the parcels in question, if you actually go just north of the city of Grand Marais, you will see that there's actually a old tribal village that used to be just north of the city of Grand Marais, which now I believe is a historical site for the most part, but that's where these parcels are located. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that all of this land at one point was all tribal land. The current boundary of the reservation now is just at the Reservation River.
Okay. Any other comment? Then Senator Hauschild, Senate File 363 as presented will be laid over for consideration in the omnibus tax bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess I'm next. Senator Klein, you'll be presiding now. At the end of my bill, I do have some announcements. Okay.
Welcome to the committee, Senator Rest. Senate File 51 is in front of us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. This bill, Senate File 51, also was presented last year and was included in the omnibus Senate bill. And we see it again here with an update in the effective date. And it has to do with, and I'm going to go back, I'm sorry. And also, I think it's a really good practice that a couple of you do all the time, and I don't do, and that is to thank the members of the tax committee who are co-authors on these bills. And there are particularly Senator Weber, Senator Nelson, very often join DFL colleagues, and then the reverse happens as well. And looking forward to Senator Barr seeing your name on a number of these bills coming to our committee, and hope you will remain on it. But so I do want to thank Senator Dibble, Senator French, who's not on here, but and Senator Weber and Senator Nelson for once again supporting the concepts that is behind this bill that has received. I would characterize, and the two people on either side will, I think, shake their heads yes, as very enthusiastic support for allowing a property tax abatement for land bank properties. I hope that they will comment about whether, I don't recall, whether this is a concept and a practice and a law that has been adopted in other states, and how successful it has been. But it is a new concept here in Minnesota statutes, and I will begin with Section 1, just defining what a land bank organization is, and what it is defined by what it does, and that means it acquires and manages vacant lands, blighted lands, foreclosed or tax forfeited lands for future development or redevelopment. But it has to be either a 501c3, a nonprofit tax-exempt organization, exempt under the federal income tax or the Federal Internal Revenue Code, or a limited liability company, an LLC, that has as its member, and it can have one member, a 501c organization. And the if you look on page 2.19 of the, what kind of authority they will have in either in lines 2.19 or 2.22, that it would be providing for affordable housing to households at 80% or lower of the area median income of the AMI. And if you recall from the income averaging provisions that we dealt with in presenting the TIF bill, not TIF bill, the 4D bill last week, the higher rate, higher income was 80% that could be averaged with 20% property, 20% AMI income limitations to get to a required 60% of renters had to be at, or they had to be at 60% to average to 60% of AMI. So that is what is in section 2 from small letters 9 and 10. And then the abatement would only be allowed for 5 years, and that's in paragraph C, lines 317 to 319. Last year, when we presented this, we looked at a longer period, but settled on the 5-year provision. And then section 4 is innocuously, in my opinion, on lines 3.24 called repayment, but we refer to it as a clawback. If the terms of the abatement are violated in any way, or in a way that is against the provisions that were described in section 1, that they must repay the abatement. And last year we had added section 4. The other difference here is that we had added section 4 as an amendment to the bill that went to that was included in the Senate tax bill, and we're not. So that's the one change. We put the amendment in the bill this year that as it is introduced, and I would draw your attention to the revenue estimate, which essentially just details the part that says explanation of the bill, and particularly pointing out that under the revenue analysis detail, that the only organization that has eligible property would be the Land Bank Twin Cities. If you have questions on any of the other analysis there, I hope that you will ask them of the witnesses. The revenue estimate in dollars does not change from last year until we get to FY fiscal year 2029, where it goes up to an impact of $20,000, and on the second page, that there would be approximately 0.25 million, 250,000 in property taxes that would shift. We should be aware of that onto other properties, beginning with taxes payable in 2026. that's where the cost would be incurred, then to the general fund of that $10,000 that's there. And the total abatement, this is assumed to be a successful program, and the total abatement would be assumed to increase 3% annually. And then the tax year impact is allocated to the following fiscal year, just to get those details out of the way. So, Mr. Chairman and members, that is this bill, and I request that you call upon the witnesses.
Thank you, Chair Rest. There are 2 witnesses for Senate File 51, and I think we should begin with Ms. Erica Coleman. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Erica Coleman. I am President and CEO of Land Bank Twin Cities. Thank you, Chair. Erica Coleman, President and CEO of Land Bank Twin Cities. And if it is okay with you, Chair, could I please have my co-witness go first?
Mr. Tom Stretz, please introduce yourself and proceed.
Yes. Thank you, Senator Klein. Good morning, everyone, and Chair Rest, Chair Weber, and all members, thank you so much. We were here last year. I'm just delighted to be here this morning to briefly describe the land bank, and I'm going to turn it over to our esteemed new president here in just a moment. But just let me start by saying how grateful I am to you and to Chair Weber that this is a bipartisan bill as well. It was heard in the House last year as a bipartisan bill. This is an opt-in, just to be clear, this is not a mandate. So any of the fiscal notes that you see are speculative. It could be far lower than that, and it probably wouldn't be a lot more. So as counties would choose to opt in to this provision, the cost will change. Let me just say briefly what a land bank is, though. Yes, there are many, many land banks throughout the country. Land banks were created largely in the 80s as a response to decline in property values. It happened in Flint, Michigan, was one of the first land banks when GM pulled out of Flint. Many, many vacant parcels. No one knew what to do with them. They were sitting there, basically tax forfeited properties, underutilized properties, and traditionally government would step in and take over a lot of these properties and try to manage them over time. The reality is that land banks are a unique supporting really organization to local jurisdictions, county jurisdictions that have properties that have maybe been gone into disuse, or during the height of the foreclosure crisis, when I started the land bank, the 2008 foreclosure crisis had swept over the city, swept over the country, and governments were reeling, trying how to deal with the forfeited property, the tax forfeited property and the foreclosed property. I learned about land banks. I traveled around. I came back and was a co-founder of the land bank in 2009. And since that time, we've had an extraordinary record of achievement of, number one, claiming, reclaiming underutilized property, getting developers in, getting commercial property put back in, getting affordable housing built. And if you look at the maps that we can provide, it's been throughout the entire metro region. So I'm quite proud of that. Land banks are growing in significance. Many, many states now are embracing them. There are new ones propping up a tribal land in South Dakota. I'm consulting with the tribes there throughout New England, the South. And so really, I think the way I'd like to characterize this is a entity that acts as a partner with local jurisdictions in order to get underutilized property back on the tax rolls. So any abatement that occurs, the ROI to the county, to the taxpayers is significant. So I just wanted to start with that. And then I want to pivot just real quickly and introduce you to Erica Coleman. I am the former president, interim president at the Land Bank, but Erica joined us here this spring, and she comes with a wealth of experience in real estate development, both as a realtor and also as a person who's worked in government and inside of government on various real estate activities. She's known throughout the country on real estate matters, so I'm just very proud today to introduce you to the new president of the Land Bank, Ms. Erica Coleman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stretz. Mrs. Coleman, did you have any comments to make?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Tom, and thank you, Chair Weber and members of the committee. Thank you, Senator Rest, as well. Again, like I said, my name is Erica Coleman, President and CEO of Land Bank Twin Cities, and I am proud for this opportunity to testify before you in support of Senate File 51 this morning. Land Bank Twin Cities is a social impact real estate organization. It is a nonprofit working directly across the 7-county metropolitan area of the Twin Cities and indirectly influencing greater Minnesota. Since 2009, Land Bank Twin Cities has been breaking barriers in the real estate market, disrupting inequities, and empowering communities to build wealth, grow potential, and drive lasting change. Land Bank Twin Cities serves as a critical intermediary in the Twin Cities' affordable housing and economic development ecosystems, strategically leveraging our balance sheet to advance housing and economic equity. Through innovative deployment of assets, equity, and liabilities, Land Bank Twin Cities has demonstrated remarkable efficiency in generating both social impact and market value. Land Bank Twin Cities offers unique and innovative programs and services in lending, land banking, and community development. Our purpose is to stabilize property values, leverage investment for economic growth, and promote lasting affordability of all real estate. The ability to have tax abatement on property that Land Bank Twin Cities specifically acquires, holds, and manages to align with our purpose furthers our reach and ability to ensure properties are put into productive use that align with community objectives. We invest in land and create opportunities. Thank you. I can take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman. Are there questions or comments from the committee? There are none. Closing comments, Senator Rest? With that, Senate File 51 will be laid over for possible inclusion. I will go now to Mr. Berggren for a description of next week's activities, or
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are still in the process of putting next week's agenda together. We should have it done sometime today.
very good. Senator Rest.
Thank you. I have just some, thank you very much. Before we adjourn, I just want to reiterate and reconfirm the agreement that we are currently operating under in terms of the operation of committees. So there was an election yesterday. It will have consequences, but Senator Weber and I are agreed that we will continue to operate as we have for the last couple of weeks. And I will be chairing tomorrow. But then on Tuesday, unless we are informed differently by our respective leaders based on whatever timetable they agree to, Senator Weber will be chairing next week, and we will be working together in developing with our staff the agenda for next week's tax committee, and we expect no disruption in that agreement until a new agreement essentially is reached based on the results of the election yesterday. So, and actually, I hope that we continue in the way in which this committee and all of you have, we're likely to have one more Democrat on the committee, but we both appreciate the way in which decorum has been upheld in this committee, and the way in which we've been able to work together. We are so incredibly grateful. So with that, Mr. Chairman, you may adjourn the committee.
Committee is adjourned.